members of Congress, and distinguished guests to the White House Rose Garden this afternoon. Also, I want to welcome the chairman of the Senate Banking Committee, who's done an incredible job, Mike Crapo. Where's Mike? Please, Mike. Great job. Appreciate it. As president, there are a few decisions more important than nominating leaders of integrity and good judgment to hold trusted positions in public office. And few of those trusted positions are more important than the chairman of the Federal Reserve. Accordingly, it is my pleasure and my honor to announce my nomination of Jerome Powell to be the next chairman of the Federal Reserve. Congratulations, Jay.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you.
Jay is joined here by his wife, Lissa, and his two sisters, Monica and Elizabeth. And I say congratulations to you all. Please take that bow, please. You deserve it. Thank you very much for being here. Today is another important milestone on the path to restoring economic opportunity for the American people. In just a short time, we have already made incredible strides. Unemployment is at its lowest level in more than 16 years. You know that very well. You know that very well, and you're happy about it. We've now had back-to-back quarters of 3% growth, a major accomplishment, and we're doing better and better every single week. But if we are to sustain all of this tremendous economic progress, our economy requires sound monetary policy and prudent oversight of our banking system. That is why we need strong, sound, and steady leadership at the United States Federal Reserve. I have nominated Jay to be our next federal chairman, and so important because he will provide exactly that type of leadership. He's strong, he's committed, he's smart. And if he is confirmed by the Senate, Jay will put his considerable talents and experience to work leading our nation's independent central bank, which has the critical responsibility to set monetary policy and monitor our banking system as a whole. There are few more important positions than this, believe me, in our government. Jay has served on the Federal Reserve Board of Governors since 2012. During his 5 years at the Fed, Jay has earned the respect and admiration of his colleagues for his hard work, expertise, and judgment. He has proven to be a consensus builder for the sound monetary and financial policy that he so strongly believes in. Based on his record, I am confident that Jay has the wisdom and leadership to guide our economy through any challenges that our great economy may face. Jay has earned the respect of members of Congress straight across party lines. For each of his appointments to the Fed, the Senate confirmed Jay with strong support from members of both parties. That's unusual. I hope the Senate will swiftly confirm him once again. Jay will also bring to the Fed a unique background of prior government service and business experience. He previously served as Undersecretary at the Department of Treasury in the administration of President George H.W. Bush. And just like William McChesney Martin, the longest-serving chairman in Federal Reserve history, Jay will bring extensive private sector experience and real-world perspective to our government. As a result, he understands what it takes for our economy to grow. And just as importantly, he understands what truly drives American success: the innovation, hard work, and dreams of the American people. I also want to thank the current chair, Fed Chair Janet Yellen, a wonderful woman who's done a terrific job. We have been working together for 10 months, and she is absolutely a spectacular person. Janet, thank you very much. We appreciate it. For the past 4 years, she has served with dedication and devotion, and we are grateful for her total commitment to public service. The Federal Reserve is one of the most important institutions in our government. It is respected all around the world and is crucial to our economic prosperity. I am confident that with Jay as a wise steward of the Federal Reserve, it will have the leadership it needs in the years to come. Thank you, and God bless you all. Now I would like to invite Jay to say a few words. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. President, for the faith that you have shown in me through this nomination. And I'm both honored and humbled by this opportunity to serve our great country. If I am confirmed by the Senate, I will do everything within my power to achieve our congressionally assigned goals of stable prices and maximum employment. I want to thank my wife, Alyssa, for her love, support, and wise counsel. Without her, quite honestly, I would not be standing here. We're thinking today of our 3 children and of the world they're inheriting. My 5 siblings and I, 2 of whom are here today with me, are also thinking today of our parents, who gave us so many gifts, including, most of all, a loving home. In the years since the global financial crisis ended, our economy has made substantial progress toward full recovery. By many measures, we're close to full employment, and inflation has gradually moved up toward our target. Our financial system is also, without doubt, far stronger and more resilient than it was before the crisis. Our banks have much higher capital and liquidity. They're more aware of the risks that they run, and they're better at managing those risks. While post-crisis improvements in regulation and supervision have helped to achieve these gains, I will continue to work with my colleagues to ensure that the Federal Reserve remains vigilant and prepared to respond to changes in markets and evolving risks. Finally, to echo the President's remarks, I've had the great privilege of serving under Chairman Bernanke and Chair Yellen, who guided the economy with insight and courage through difficult times while moving monetary policy toward greater transparency and predictability. Each of them embodies the highest ideals of public service, unquestioned integrity, and unflinching commitment to fulfilling our mandate. Inside the Federal Reserve, we understand that monetary policy decisions matter for American families and communities. I strongly share that sense of mission, and I'm committed to making decisions with objectivity, based on the best available evidence, in the long-standing tradition of monetary policy independence. Mr. President, thank you again for this extraordinary opportunity to serve the American people. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Any reaction to Sam Clovis withdrawing?
Mr. President, do you think you're in hot water in the Mueller investigation?
Is it too soon to discuss non-immigrant terrorism, like as in Vegas?
And there you see President Trump leaving the podium with his just named nominee to be the new chairman of the Federal Reserve, Jay Powell, ignoring some questions from reporters there, but focusing on the issue at hand for him, which was this key appointment that is crucial to the U.S. economy for so many reasons. Hey guys, I'm Amna Nawaz, live here with Rebecca Jarvis, ABC's chief business correspondent. How you doing?
Good, how are you? I'm
good. We've got Rick Klein down in D.C. who's going to weigh in just a second too, but jump us off here, Rebecca. This appointment we knew was coming to some degree. Jay Powell is considered the safe choice, the continuity candidate for a number of reasons. Why is that? Tell me about him.
Well, first off, he's already on the Fed's board of directors. So he's already a member of the Federal Reserve, appointed in 2012 by then President Obama. He's a Republican. President Obama made 2 appointments to the Fed at that time, 1 Republican and 1 Democrat. Jay Powell was the Republican. He served in George H.W. Bush's administration. At the time, was the Assistant Secretary and Undersecretary of the Treasury. And the perception of Jay Powell Powell is that he will very much continue on the tradition of the current Federal Reserve under Chair Yellen, which has been one of moderate, slow-paced interest rate hikes. Right now, interest rates are between 1 and 1.25%. The Fed's view of the economy, we just got another report from the Fed yesterday, is that the economy is strong and continuing to improve. And the idea would be that essentially everything that is happening right now at the Federal Reserve, the chances, for example, of one more Fed interest rate hike by the end of the year, very likely 3 more interest rate hikes by next year, also likely.
So the mandate for this man is don't mess it up.
Yeah,
keep the ship steady.
The Fed's mandate. The Fed basically has a mandate to make sure that employment is maximized in this country. Right now, the unemployment rate in this country is near record lows. It's 4.2% right now in the country. The job of the Fed is to make sure to keep unemployment as low as it can be, so maximize employment, create as many jobs as possible, and at the same time make sure that prices, inflation, don't get so out of hand that all of a sudden we can't afford to buy things.
So, Rick Klein, here Jay Powell is stepping in, if he's confirmed by the Senate, and steps into this role as chairman, at a good time for the economy, right? The unemployment rate is at a 16-year low. Economic expansion is in its 9th year now. All things going really, really well for Jay Powell. But at the same time, President Trump didn't have to name him. He could have just reappointed Janet Yellen, which has actually been the common practice in modern history. If the chairman is there and has only done 1 term and the economy is doing well, they get reappointed. So why do you think the president did this?
You're right. That has been the tradition recently. Ben Bernanke was named by George W. Bush, reappointed by Barack Obama. Of course, before that, you had Alan Greenspan, first appointed by Ronald Reagan. He served all the way up and through the Obama years, reappointed by Republicans and Democrats. I'm struck by something, though, in this, is that President Trump could have gone far outside the box. And if you listen to what he said in the campaign trail, the criticism he had for Janet Yellen, even suggesting at one point that she was trying to change the economy's trajectory to help Hillary Clinton, you don't hear any of that from the president anymore. And it seems like they have developed a real relationship. And you saw President Trump heaping praise on Janet Yellen today. He has been described, Jay Powell has been described as kind of the Republican version of Janet Yellen. So I actually think he could have gone far, far afield from where he did, and this is the safer choice of continuity. This is a guy that's blown a lot of things up. He didn't blow this up today.
So we had a little bit of a heads up that this would be the name that we were all going to learn today. Are we seeing any kind of reaction so far to the name?
Well, frankly, as far as Wall Street is concerned, and I haven't looked at price action in the last second. I mean, Wall Street can literally do. Okay, there you have it. So Wall Street is essentially where it was prior to the announcement. Prices started out a little bit lower today, but that's nothing to write home about. It's a pretty muted, limited reaction from Wall Street. I think there's one other portion of what the Fed can do, and this might have something to do with Jay Powell and what his role will be and what he's already advocated for. It's regulation of the banks. The Fed has a few more powers given Dodd-Frank and the regulations under Dodd-Frank to set deeper regulations when it comes to banks. And Jay Powell has been an advocate for fewer and simpler rules on small and regional banks. One of the big criticisms among some analysts coming out of Dodd-Frank is that it was a blanket set of rules that applied to banks across the board. And smaller and regional banks would say, well, we can't adhere to the exact same practices that, for example, JP Morgan Chase or Bank of America can adhere to.
Right.
We're much smaller. We don't have the budgets. That could be an area that he could actually flex some muscle and have some say in as Fed chair.
So here's the other thing where that might become a conversation down the line. If he gets confirmed, we have to couch all this with if he gets confirmed. Rick Klein, let me ask you this. As Rebecca says, this is the safe choice for a lot of reasons. He has a cautious approach to economic growth in the same tradition as Janet Yellen. That's not the president's approach. That is not what he has been pushing for. And we've seen unprecedented 2 straight quarters of 3% GDP growth. The president says he wants to see more of that. Could that be a problem?
I think it's a question that's going to come up in the confirmation hearings, as it has for almost anyone the president has appointed, particularly after he told Director Comey, FBI director, in a roughly similar position of a quasi-independent agency, that he wanted loyalty. I think you're going to hear a lot of questions about what kind of conversations happen between the president and his advisors and Jay Powell, if they're looking for any kind of assurances, what kind of coordination and communication you'd get in a position that is supposed to be, at least ostensibly, removed from politics. But look, I think he takes over at a time where the economy economy is humming. The president doesn't want to screw that up. He's got some legislative priorities that move in that direction. He wants to see growth because it's good for him politically and it's good for the country. That's one area that's almost undeniable at this point, that the country's been moving in the right direction when it comes to the economy, with employment and with the stock market. People's 401ks feel better these days. He wants to see that trend continue. I am curious if he would ever kind of exert influence on a Fed chair that he felt like wasn't doing the right thing. We know that he's willing to attack just about anyone on Twitter, and I do expect that to be an issue that the Senate brings up during the confirmation hearings.
And it's worth noting back here in New York, Rebecca, we're talking about this on the day that the GOP House leadership unveiled their tax plan. There's obviously huge economic repercussions for that as well. How is all of this sort of fitting together in the puzzle? How are people going to approach this as a landscape of where we might be over the next few years?
Well, I think, first of all, you have a nomination and you have a plan that's on the table.
That could change a number of times before it gets to the president's
desk. Especially as far as the tax plan is concerned, a lot can change. From Wall Street's standpoint, there was so much expectation put on this administration around the tax plan, around infrastructure spending, and around what would happen with regulations. And when you look at this tax plan, when you look at what's happening as far as regulations are concerned, most of these things are moving in the direction that Wall Street had anticipated. Now, obviously, there's so much that's subject to change here. And I think that once people start to take a closer look at the tax plan, that's where, and this is where Rick Klein can jump in, that's where the people are going to have their say about whether or not they feel this is fair, whether or not they feel this is just, and whether or not they feel like this is what they truly voted for.
So Rick Klein, jump in here. What do you say?
I'm struck so far that there isn't a constituency out there so far for this tax plan that it's grassroots up. We're seeing a lot of big business groups and some of the biggest political organizations jumping in on this and championing this. They have not yet made the case to the middle class. And I think they've been strained in trying to describe this tax cut as a middle class tax cut. The president today saying it's a big Christmas gift for the American people. I'm not sure that the people have demonstrated that they want this particular gift yet. That's going to be the challenge here, to tie this back to the economy, to make an affirmative case for this tax cut. I think it's one of the defining moments of the Trump presidency, quite honestly, because he made that case based on an appeal to help the little guy, to help the middle class, to grow the economy in ways that lifted all boats. That's hard to do because the wealthy, frankly, pay the most taxes. When you do a tax cut, they're going to get the bulk of it. There's a big corporate tax cut in here that only when it trickles down does it start to reach the so-called little guys, the middle class. So I think there's a lot of salesmanship that has to happen to make this something that the American people want as much as right now the Republican representatives do.
Well, and already you've heard from a couple interest groups in the business world who are actually saying, no, we're not into this plan. You've heard from the Small Business Council. You've heard from home builders in particular who, with that mortgage interest deduction, with the rate on that lowered, you're actually seeing one of the groups that's selling off today on Wall Street, for example, are the home builders, because ultimately they lose if people aren't in the mood to go out and spend money on home building because they're not getting that mortgage interest deduction.
So, Rick, give me a prediction here. This is a good time to put your feet to the fire. Is there any reason that we don't see Jay Powell confirmed here?
Oh, I don't see any reason that he's not confirmed. I think when both Democrats and Republicans look at this, they realize that the president's rhetoric as a campaigner and even as president could have led in some wild directions. This is not a wild direction of a choice. This seems to be an area where he's listening to his economic team. There was some talk about him appointing Gary Cohn. I think the markets would have been fine with that. Probably Congress would have had a few more questions about that. But he seems to, in the areas of business, the stuff that Rebecca covers, he's taken the advice of the smart people around him, it would seem, and he's not going in any directions that I think would overly alarm people. So I would guess, unless something major comes up in confirmation hearings, something totally unexpected, this would be pretty smooth sailing by the standards of Washington in 2017.
Smooth sailing. I think that's something we can all get behind right now in these untroubled times. Hey, Rick Klein down in D.C., our political director and the host of the Powerhouse Politics podcast. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks, Amna.
And back here in New York, Rebecca Jarvis, the host of the No Limits podcast.
Thanks,
Podcast
Amna.
Fest here. Thanks so much for being here. Good to have
Appreciate
you. Thanks to all of you for watching as well. Remember, you can head over to abcnews.com anytime, get the latest on these stories, or download the ABC News app. Get all the headlines right to your phone or mobile device. For now, I'm Amna Nawaz. I'll see you back here soon.